Lately, I have been so distracted. I would be sitting here working away at my desk, and then all of a sudden, I would find myself scanning social media. And I'd force myself back to work, and the next thing I know, I was in my inbox for no apparent reason. And this isn't something that was just happening a couple of times a day. It was happening a lot. And so I decided I needed to do something about it. And so I decided that I was going to do something super simple that only took 60 seconds, but it transformed my day. This is Monterastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 626, originally aired August 28th, 2024. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to join me. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. Now, our subconscious mind is always working to keep us safe. Sometimes it does this in absolutely annoying ways. So as I sit here and I try and work on something and I bump into a feeling that I don't like, my subconscious mind doesn't want me to feel that feeling anymore. So what it does is it reaches for a distraction. For example, as I was working on the notes for this week's podcast, I actually found myself reaching for my phone to check an online dating app. And I realized that there is something really valuable in recognizing when those moments are happening, not just because it's getting in my way and I'm less efficient, but it's a great opportunity for me to tune in and for me to learn a little bit more about myself. And so what I decided to do is I decided to inject a little tapping at those particular moments. Now, if you are new to tapping and you have no idea what tapping is this really super simple tool that I use every single day for myself with my clients. It transforms the way we feel, it transforms the way we think, and it's something that takes very little time to do. If you are new to tapping, I would encourage you to go to learntotap.com. All you need to do is follow the little red arrow in the upper right-hand corner. It will take you to learntotap.com. It will give you all the basics. So as you see what we talk about here today, you're going to be implementing it right away. Once I realized that I was being distracted all of the time in all of these different ways, I decided that I wanted to approach this in a systematic way, as a way of being able to stop it, but being a way to understand it. So the first thing that I did is I made a list of all of the things I did when I was distracted. And they basically fell into 4 categories. The first was social media stuff. I would jump on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Sometimes it was just to look at beautiful things. Sometimes it was to go look at news stories, but it was something that I didn't need to be doing in that moment. The second thing was I would be going to websites, news websites, things that are going on about the world, things in the sports world, but I was reading something else. The third thing was I would reach for my phone and I'd jump on one of those online dating apps. And finally, I would go into my inbox. Now, all 4 of these things, social media, websites, dating apps, inbox, those are part of my day. And it's appropriate they're a part of my day. But the reason why I was going to them is they were providing a distraction. Either I was looking at something, or I got a new piece of information, or I got to reaffirm something that I already knew, or I could be aspirational about what might happen in the future on an online dating app. And so I realized that those are good things, but they were getting in the way. Now, by making this list, what it did is it actually made the next step significantly easier. Because instead of just going, when I'm distracted, I'm going to do something. Well, when I'm distracted, I don't always know that I'm being distracted. I'm just doing that thing. So by naming the places that I was going to be distracted, then it wasn't of when I'm distracted, I'm going to do something different, but instead, when I do one of these 4 things in the middle of my day, I'm going to do something different. So we now know what I wanted to do the intervention about when I was being distracted. So the second thing I needed to do is I needed to figure out what I was going to do when that happened. And so for me, it was super simple. All I did was I took my watch, I set a timer for 60 seconds, and I just started to tap. I didn't say phrases. I didn't tune into what was going on. I didn't try and understand the moment, but instead I just sat here and I tapped and I noticed. And I tapped and I noticed. And sometimes what I noticed was just kind of like a buzzy energy in the middle of my chest. Sometimes what I noticed was a fear that was bigger than what was in front of me, something that was hanging over my head. So, for example, last week, as we were leading into the new training that I was doing with my sister, there was some anxiety about that because it was the first time I was doing it and there were still lots of details. So, even if I was working on one thing, that was hanging over my head. The third thing that would come up would be about the task that was in front of me. It was a task I didn't like. It was a task that I didn't think was going to go well. It was a task that I didn't think I was very good at. It was a task that was going to go wrong. But again, as I was doing this, I wasn't responding to any of those noticings. I was just tapping and noticing, tapping and noticing. And my watch, 60 seconds later, would vibrate, and I would stop and take a nice big deep breath. And then what I would do is I would just quickly jot down. I just had a little notebook next to me here on my desk, and I would just jot down what I noticed. Again, buzziness, big picture, small picture, that was it. And again, I didn't diagnose it. But after doing that 60 seconds of tapping, I felt grounded, I felt ready to go, and I went after it. And I continued with my work. Now, sometimes when I did this, 13 minutes later, I'm sitting here tapping again for 60 seconds, and sometimes it would be hours before that happened again. But the thing that I realized is that even though I was doing it persistently, it was still being really beneficial for me. Because one, the 60 seconds I spent tapping was less time than I was going to spend on social media or in my inbox. So even though I was interrupting what I was doing, I was interrupting it for a shorter period of time. Secondly, going into my inbox was making me feel a little better because I had control, but it wasn't making me feel as good as doing the 60 seconds of tapping. So even though I was interrupting myself lots and lots of times throughout the day, the way I was interrupting myself was taking less time, and the way I was interrupting myself actually made me feel better. Then what I did is at the end of the day, is I went to that list of everything I had written down, and I read through it. And I went to see if there were any trends or if there's anything that I noticed. So for example, last week, because I was distracted because I had this big thing hanging over my head, I then spent 10 or 15 minutes tapping on that. But I didn't interrupt my day to go after that big thing. I just put myself back in my body. I calmed myself down because I knew it was a possibility that if I went after that big thing, I might open up in something really, really big that would make it hard for me to get back to work. So during the day, the goal was just to get back on task, feel better, get back on task. Then at the end of the day, I did the bigger picture work, which allowed me to enter my next day significantly easier and significantly more gentle. And that's it. It wasn't more complicated than that. The moment I felt my finger on the mouse going to a new thing, or the moment I was reaching over here to grab my phone to look at an app, I went, oh, look what I'm doing. That's really interesting. Set a timer and tap. And that was it. And then as I tapped, I just noticed. And I wasn't judging myself for the fact that I had to be stopping to tap, because it's what I needed to do. And it was, it's like I don't judge myself when I interrupt my day to use the restroom, to refill my water, to eat lunch. It's something I have to do to navigate the day. And my system was in a state that the only way I was going to be present to what was in front of me, and the only way I was going to be able to do the work that I needed to do, was to do this little intervention for 60 seconds. So it doesn't do me any good to judge myself for that. It's just a fact of life. I don't judge myself for refilling my water. I don't judge myself for tapping for 60 seconds. So if you would like to try something like this, it's really super, super simple. Number one, make a list of the things that you do to distract yourself in the middle of the day. And it could be as comprehensive as mine with lots of things, or it could be this only one thing and you always reach for that one thing, but note that thing. Number two, notice when you are reaching to do that thing, when it is not appropriate. Like when I'm having lunch, it's appropriate for me to scroll Instagram. I'm not worried about it then because I'm enjoying my lunch and I love looking at beautiful things. But if it's in the middle of something I'm doing where I'm trying to be productive, I notice it and then I tap for 60 seconds. When I'm done tapping for 60 seconds, the third step is to jot down what I noticed in my system. And again, it could be as simple as, boy, I feel distracted, or I am worried about this thing. And then number 4, and this is a bonus step, at the end of the day, I review my list of everything that I wrote down, and I do a little extra work on one of those things if it's appropriate, if it is necessary. Now, I've been doing this for a couple of weeks. It has been so much better. I've been so much more productive, and I have still had to use it multiple times a day. And that's okay. Now, over time, I am guessing I'm going to need to do this less and less, except when I need to do it more and more because of what's going on in my life. But it's really that simple. It's really that straightforward. I would really, really love for you to give it a try. Let me know in the comments how this works for you. I would love to see what you learned from this particular process and if there's a way that we can make it better. If you know someone in your life who would appreciate a little instruction and a little pep talk like this because they are being distracted in their day as well, please be our ambassador, pass it along. We always joke about the fact that our marketing budget is your word of mouth. And if you reach out to someone in your life, even if they don't listen to this instruction and what we're talking about here, the fact that you have reached out and said, hey, I'm thinking of you today. I think this is going to make a difference. It's going to make a difference in their day, because they know someone is thinking of them. And yes, that is the cheesiest thing in the world when I say it, but I also know it to be true, and you know it to be true as well. So feel free to pass this along. As you're looking at the screen right now, you can actually see all of the podcast archives here on YouTube. Click on that playlist, go back, dive in, enjoy some of the other tapping, some of the other instruction, and I look forward to talking with you and tapping with you again real soon. Bye-bye.